Emily Carter did not expect the moment that changed everything to happen on an ordinary Friday afternoon, when the office lights felt too bright and the week's tiredness hung quietly in the air, because nothing about that day seemed special until her boss, Daniel Wright, stood near her desk with a calm expression that always made people listen, and asked her a question that sounded simple but carried a weight she could not explain, as he mentioned an upcoming client event at a private golf club. And said, almost casually, that it might help if she learned the basics, then paused and added that he could give her private lessons himself, which made Emily look up in surprise because Daniel was known for being careful, distant, and respectful, a man who kept clear boundaries and rarely mixed work with anything personal, and for a moment Emily thought she might have misunderstood him, but the way he waited for her answer, hands in his pockets, eyes steady but uncertain, told her he meant it. And her mind rushed through reasons to say no. She had never played golf, she didn't belong in that world, and spending time alone with her boss felt risky, but another part of her, the quiet part that felt unseen most days, noticed how this was the first time Daniel had invited her into something outside spreadsheets and meetings, and she remembered how she often stayed late at work, proving herself, hoping someone would notice not just her skills but her effort, and now here he was, noticing her. And the thought made her chest tighten, because Daniel Wright was admired by everyone in the office, respected for his fairness and calm strength, yet few truly knew him, and Emily had always sensed a loneliness in him that matched her own, so before fear could take over, she agreed, surprising both of them, and Daniel smiled in a way she had never seen before, small, genuine, and almost relieved, which made her wonder what this meant to him as well, and as he walked away, she felt a strange mix of excitement and worry settled deep inside her, because she knew that nothing bad had happened, nothing inappropriate had been said, yet something had shifted, like a door opening quietly, and as the rest of the day passed, Emily found it hard to focus, replaying the moment again and again, questioning why his simple offer felt more personal than it should, while Daniel, in his own office, stared out at the city skyline, wondering why he had asked her instead of arranging a group lesson or leaving the matter to someone else, because the truth was that he had noticed Emily long before that afternoon, not in a careless way, but in the way she listened carefully in meetings, the way she stayed calm under pressure, and the way she smiled politely even when overlooked, and inviting her to the golf course felt like a harmless decision at first, a chance to help her succeed, yet now he realized it also meant stepping closer to a line he usually never approached, and that night, as Emily drove home through familiar streets, she felt a quiet thrill she hadn't felt in years, mixed with the fear of disappointment, telling herself it was just a lesson, just golf, nothing more, but deep inside, she sensed that the invitation was not only about learning a game, it was about being seen, and that feeling, once awakened, could not be easily put away, making her lie awake later, staring at the ceiling, wondering what Monday morning at the golf course would bring, unaware that this single yes had already begun to change the way both their lives would unfold. The first morning Emily arrived at the golf course, the sky was pale and quiet, and the world felt far away from office emails and deadlines, which made her nervous but also strangely calm as she walked across the wide green space and saw Daniel waiting near the practice area, dressed casually for the first time she had ever seen him, looking less like a boss and more like a man who belonged to the open air, and he greeted her with a warm smile that eased her tension just enough to let her breathe. Then, without wasting time, he began explaining the basics, speaking clearly and simply, never making her feel small for not knowing anything, and Emily noticed how patient he was, how he watched her movements carefully but respectfully, correcting her grip, her stance, her balance, always stepping back afterward as if reminding himself to keep space, and the lesson moved fast, shot after shot, mistake after mistake. But instead of frustration, Emily felt alive, laughing softly when the ball rolled the wrong way, encouraged by Daniel's calm voice telling her to try again, and between swings they talked easily, about the upcoming client event, about her career goals, about how she grew up in a small town where opportunities felt limited, and Daniel listened in a way few people ever had, fully focused, asking thoughtful questions, and when he spoke about himself it was with honesty but restraint, sharing how leadership often felt lonely, how people saw his position before they saw him, and Emily realized she was learning more about him in 1 hour than she had in years of working together, and as the days turned into weeks, the lessons became part of a new routine, early mornings filled with movement and conversation, the sound of clubs hitting balls, the quiet space between words growing heavier with meaning, and Emily started to notice small things, like how Daniel's voice softened when he encouraged her, or how he seemed more relaxed on the course than anywhere else, while Daniel noticed how Emily gained confidence quickly, not just in golf but in herself, standing taller, smiling more freely, and these changes made something stir inside him that he tried to ignore, telling himself this was mentorship, nothing more, yet there were moments that felt harder to explain, like when their hands brushed briefly as he handed her a club, or when silence fell between them and neither rushed to break it, and Emily felt that silence deeply, carrying it with her long after the lessons ended, thinking about Daniel during her workday, wondering what he thought when he watched her across the office, while Daniel found himself looking forward to mornings more than he should, waking early with a sense of anticipation he hadn't felt in years, and despite the growing closeness, both stayed careful, never speaking about feelings, never crossing clear boundaries, because they both understood the risk, the imbalance, the responsibility, and that awareness added tension to every shared smile and quiet moment, making the lessons feel fragile, like something that could break if named too openly. And one morning, as Emily finally managed a clean, confident shot that sailed farther than ever before, Daniel clapped lightly and smiled with pride, and in that instant Emily felt seen not as an employee, not as a student, but as herself, and that feeling settled deep in her heart, warm and dangerous, while Daniel felt the same moment strike him with sudden clarity. Realizing that teaching her golf had become something personal, something meaningful, and as they packed up to leave that day, walking side by side toward the parking lot under the rising sun, neither spoke, but both felt it clearly, the quiet truth that what was growing between them could no longer be ignored forever, and that realization followed them back into their separate worlds, making each lesson feel more important than the last, even as neither knew how long they could keep pretending this was just about golf. The shift happened on a morning that felt heavier than the rest, when dark clouds covered the sky and a soft rain began to fall just as Emily reached the golf course, making the air cool and quiet, and Daniel was already there, standing under a small shelter, his expression serious in a way she had not seen before, and without starting the lesson he suggested they wait out the rain, which placed them close together in the narrow space, listening to the steady sound of water hitting the roof, and in that stillness the truth they had both avoided pressed in, because the easy smiles were gone and Daniel seemed distant, thoughtful, and Emily sensed something was about to change, and when he finally spoke his voice was calm but careful, as he said he had been thinking a lot about their lessons and what they meant, and how he worried that the line between mentor and something more was becoming unclear, not because of anything wrong she had done, but because of feelings he should have addressed sooner. And Emily felt her chest tighten as she listened, realizing he was naming what she had felt for weeks but had never dared to say aloud, and Daniel continued, explaining that as her boss he carried responsibility, that no matter how mutual or gentle the connection felt, the balance of power made it complicated, and he never wanted her to feel pressured, confused, or hurt, and though his words were respectful and honest, they landed heavily, because Emily understood them completely yet still felt the sting of disappointment, knowing that doing the right thing did not make the pain disappear, and she told him quietly that she appreciated his honesty and that she had felt the same confusion, admitting she had come to value their time together more than she expected, and for a brief moment their eyes met, filled with everything they were choosing not to act on, and that moment hurt the most, because it showed how real the connection was, and after that the rain seemed louder, the shelter smaller, and Daniel suggested that it might be best to end the private lessons, at least for now, so they could return to a professional distance, and Emily agreed, even though her voice shook slightly, because she knew he was protecting them both, and they stood there a moment longer before stepping apart, the space between them suddenly wide and cold, and the weeks that followed were marked by a careful return to normal, with no more early mornings, no quiet conversations, no shared laughter, just polite meetings and professional emails, and Emily felt the absence deeply, noticing how empty her mornings felt and how often her thoughts returned to the course, replaying small moments she now realized she had treasured. While at work she performed her duties with the same dedication, but something inside her had gone quiet, a soft ache she carried without showing it, and Daniel felt the change just as strongly, burying himself in work, avoiding unnecessary interactions, reminding himself daily why he had made that choice, yet finding no relief from the loneliness that followed. And sometimes he caught sight of Emily across the office, focused and composed, and wondered if he had misjudged the situation, if distance truly helped, or if it only made the loss clearer. And Emily, trying to move forward, started practicing golf alone in the evenings, hitting balls in silence, missing the calm guidance and encouragement she once had, but using the game as a way to process her emotions, each swing releasing a little of what she could not say. And in those moments she realized that the lessons had given her more than a skill, they had given her confidence and clarity, teaching her what connection felt like and how deeply she valued being seen. And though the relationship never crossed any lines, the ending still felt like a quiet heartbreak, one without drama or blame, just two people choosing restraint over desire. And as time passed, both learned to live with that choice, even as the unspoken feelings lingered beneath the surface, waiting for a future that neither could yet imagine, but both secretly hoped might still exist in some different form. The end did not arrive suddenly but through a quiet decision Emily made one evening after work, when she sat alone in her apartment reviewing a job offer from another company, realizing that while she had grown professionally where she was, something inside her needed change, space, and forward motion. And after days of reflection she submitted her resignation, keeping her reasons simple and professional. And when Daniel received the news he felt a mix of surprise and understanding. Because part of him had sensed she would not stay forever, and on her last week he asked if she would like to walk the golf course one final time, not for lessons, not for instruction, just to talk. And Emily agreed, feeling calm instead of nervous this time. And when they met early in the morning the course looked peaceful, the grass bright under the rising sun, and they walked slowly, side by side, speaking honestly without fear, as Daniel told her how much he respected her growth, her courage, and her impact on the team, admitting that their time on the course had reminded him of parts of himself he had forgotten, while Emily shared how those mornings had given her confidence and clarity, helping her believe in herself beyond the office walls. And there was no regret in their words, only gratitude, because both understood that what they shared mattered even if it never became something more. And as they reached the final hole they stopped, standing in silence, feeling the weight of goodbye without sadness, because this ending felt clean and respectful. And Daniel said that sometimes the right timing mattered more than strong feelings, and Emily agreed, knowing that walking away did not erase the connection but honored it. And when they finally parted, their goodbye was simple, warm, and full of possibility. And as Emily drove away she felt hopeful, excited for the future ahead, while Daniel watched the empty course and felt at peace for the first time in months. Understanding that some relationships are meant to teach rather than last, and that the lessons they shared would stay with him long after the game was over, shaping the way he approached life, leadership, and connection. And though their paths moved in different directions, both carried the quiet knowledge that what they experienced was real, meaningful, and enough, leaving the story not with longing, but with growth, acceptance, and the promise that sometimes the most powerful endings are the ones that let people move forward with grace.